Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the Way Wednesdays virtual Midrash. Glad you can be here. I know I wasn't here for the last couple of weeks. Things came up, so sorry about that. Um, but we're back together now, and we are in the book of Leviticus. So I'm really excited about that. And I want to let you know that if you don't have the app, you're missing out. Okay, the Way Congregation app. Why would you want this thing? Well, it's really cool. The thing that I use frequently is that there's an audio Bible. I love it that it reads the Bible to me. Also, if I'm wondering, like, what is this week's portion? I can go on and I can look, and it will tell me right there what the portion is. Or something that I need to know as the pastor of the Way Congregation is, what are we doing next week? Right? So I can go and quickly look at the calendar, and it tells me what's going on. So all those things are there, so much more. We have free books and videos and a lot of great stuff. If you guys want to be part of the Way Congregation, if you want to support it financially, then you can also give through the Way Congregation app. So that's a great feature. But it's just a wonderful place. There's also texting. Every Tuesdays, I take Bible questions. All right. So if there's a question that maybe I'm not able to get to on this show, because I'm a little more focused on getting through the portion, you can bring your question on Tuesday, and you can put that in the app, in the messaging section. Just put that in there, and I'll get to your question. So look forward to doing that as well. All kinds of great stuff is coming up. Of course, we have Passover coming up. We're going to celebrate it April 15th. That's a Friday night, right? So kind of in the diaspora, we can celebrate it 2 nights. Okay, so the 15th and 16th. We are deciding to do it on the 15th. So that's the first night, and then we're going to encourage people to do it in their homes the second night. Okay, so if you can join us in person, that would be phenomenal. All right, we're going to have that on the website and on the app really soon. Okay, so we don't quite have that, but tickets will go on sale. It's kind of a big to-do, right? And it's exciting. It's a really wonderful experience. If you've never celebrated Passover, I encourage you, go somewhere. If you can join us virtually, great. If you can join us in person, wonderful. If you can find another place that's near you, even better. Okay. But just celebrate it with somebody. It really is an amazing and special time. All right. Well, let's get into tonight's Torah portion. There is a lot to look at, so let's jump right in. All right. Now the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tabernacle of meeting, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when any one of you brings an offering to the Lord, you shall bring your offering of the livestock, of the herd, and of the flock. If his offering is a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own free will at the door of the tabernacle meeting before the Lord." Excuse me. Then he shall put his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. All right, I'm going to stop right there. All right, so we're in the book of Leviticus, right? We're not talking about the incredible things of creation or the flood or the Nephilim. We're not talking about the amazing episode of God taking the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, the plagues, and all of the miracles that happened at that time. We don't have God coming down on Mount Sinai and all of his fiery, glory and all that amazing stuff, right? We have really a manual. This is a manual for the priests about how they are supposed to be technicians on God's behalf. And so, to be fair, there are a few times in the book of Leviticus where it can be a little bit dry because you're kind of reading a manual. However, I want to encourage you guys as we're going through this, right? Keep your eyes open and say, I know there's something here. Remember, Jesus is our high priest. He is the ultimate, the final high priest. And everything that was happening in the tabernacle, because the tabernacle was a copy and a shadow of the one that was up there, and the priest was also officiating in a like role to the ultimate high priest, the priest according to the order of Melchizedek, Jesus, right? So we can glean a whole bunch of stuff. Now, I don't think that there are not animal sacrifices going on in heaven, obviously, right? We're told that the Messiah, the high priest of the heavenly tabernacle, he took his blood once and for all, not the blood of bulls and calves, not offered on a continual basis, but once and only once he took his blood and he offered it on the heavenly altar. Okay, so obviously there's a number of things that are happening here in Leviticus that are not necessary in the heavenly tabernacle. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff for which the high priest has to do in case he makes an error. What is he going to do, right? Obviously that was not needed for Jesus because guess what? He didn't make any errors. So, not everything here is going to have application to Jesus, but it shows us how these human agents had to act because they could not obviously fulfill the shoes of Jesus. Okay. And there's another thing I want you to understand as we're going through this. The word sacrifice, that is a word that we're going to see throughout this book. The word there is korban, right? And what are they to do with it? They're to bring it near, right? The word korban and near are the same word. That's interesting, isn't it? Why would a sacrifice be the equivalent of the word near or close? I think to me it's quite obvious, because this animal, this sacrifice, is the object by which the worshiper can come near to God. That is the whole goal, because God wants to have fellowship with us. And unfortunately, sin, let's call it a better word, decomposition, degeneration, decay, that has separated us from God. God doesn't have a problem. We're the ones with the problem. We start to disintegrate when we're a little too close to God, right? So that's the real problem. So God has found a way, at least here in the book of Leviticus, he found a somewhat temporary way for him and the nation of Israel to be close. Okay, so that is really what we're talking about. Now, I originally, God was going to have the firstborn be the high priest. They're going to have a kingdom of priests. Well, it didn't work out so well. You remember the whole thing of the golden calf, right? They definitely got off the wrong foot. So God then gave that right to the Levites, which we're going to read about when we get to Numbers chapter 3. Okay, so hang in there. We're going to get there. Numbers chapter 3. But so basically, this whole thing is a manual of what they're supposed to do. Now, there's also a whole bunch of amazing laws that we're going to get into when we get into chapter 11, all about the food laws, right? What is food? What is not food? It's that simple. What this is food, this isn't food, okay? Chicken is food, vulture is not food, right? Simple, right? So that's going to be in there. We're going to get into how we look at the feasts, right? When we get to Leviticus 23. Also, what are acceptable sexual relations? Okay, Leviticus 18. Some are acceptable, some are not. Okay, so we'll be looking at that. And then the whole thing about loving your neighbor as yourself, guess what? That's in this book as well, right? Leviticus 19. There's amazing places, amazing things in this book. So hang in there, okay? I know there's gonna be a few times where we're like, okay, and you got to kill the meat, you got to kill the animal, and you got to take the meat, and it sounds like maybe a cookbook or some kind of a manual. That's because it is in part, right? And so let's just be mindful of that as we're going through this book, and I'll do my best to point things out. For example, right here, the high priest is going to put his hand on the head of the burnt offering. Why? Because we saw in Exodus that Aaron and or his sons, the high priest, would bear the word nasa or nose, they would bear the iniquity of the children of Israel, right? And so by doing that, this thing is now on them. Well, they're going to take that and they're going to put their hands on the head of the sacrifice that allows them to come near to God, right? Isn't it cool how it all works out? And then that burden, that weight, that guilt that is on him is now transferred to the sacrifice. And then it's atoned for, it's covered for a time. All right. There's a lot of amazing stuff that's going on here. All right. He shall kill the bull before the Lord, and the priest, Aaron's son, shall bring the blood and sprinkle the blood all around on the altar that is by the door of the tabernacle meeting. And he shall skin the burnt offering and cut it into its pieces. The sons of Aaron, the priests, shall put fire on the altar and lay the wood in order on the fire. Then the priests, Aaron's sons, shall lay the parts, the head, and the fat in order on the wood that is on the fire upon the altar. but he shall wash its entrails and its legs with water. And the priest shall burn all the altar as a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. If his offering is of the flocks, of the sheep, or of the goats, as a burnt sacrifice, he shall bring a male without blemish. He shall kill it on the north side of the altar before the Lord, and the priests, Aaron's sons, shall sprinkle its blood all around on the altar. And he shall cut it into pieces with its head and fat, and the priest shall lay them in order on the wood that is on the fire upon the altar. But he shall wash the entrails and the legs with water. Then the priest shall bring it all and burn it on the altar. It is a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. Look, a burnt sacrifice, that's it. It's gone, right? This whole animal that became the sacrifice that he laid the iniquity on, it's now gone. It's just consumed, right? So there's different kinds of sacrifices. We have to understand that. So this is just one that is wholly given over to God. There's no reclamation of this thing. It's just, it's burned up. Okay. And if the burnt sacrifice of his offering to the Lord is of birds, then he shall bring his offering of turtle doves or young pigeons. The priest shall bring it to the altar, wring off its head, and burn it on the altar. Its blood shall be drained on the side of the altar. Look, I know there's a lot of blood. There's a lot of killing in this whole thing. And I get it, right? You know, like, oh, gosh, can't I just read the New Testament? Well, that's kind of bloody too, to be fair. Why all the talk about the blood? All right. Well, we know that the life is in the blood. That's in this book as well. And God says that he gave the blood for you to make atonement for your souls, right? So there's something very special about the blood. There's something that really surpasses just any sense of, you know, this is just basic hemoglobin. It's just, you know, whatever it's made up of, blood, right? Okay, blood cells. It's more than just biology. There's something spiritual going on here. And I talk about this in Corrupting Image too, where when God gives the blood to make atonement for us, to make a covering for us, there's something that it becomes like a force field. Okay. So there's something, I can't quite explain it, obviously, but there's something very powerful, spiritual, it's potent, that is in the blood. And that's why God tells us to pour it out on the ground. We're not to eat it. We're not to drink it. And I want you to understand that as a Christian, as a evangelical, messianic, Torah, whatever you want to call yourself, blood is still not on the menu. I had a shocking conversation with some pastors years ago. I don't know how we got on the topic. I think I had just heard about blood pudding and I was seriously grossed out. And I'm like, I don't know why anybody would want to eat blood pudding. And besides, it's not even biblical, right? And, you know, and of course, I showed in Acts 15, where it says that there's, you know, 4 things that new converts are not supposed to do, which is eat blood. And this pastor, he chewed me out, telling me that, you know, we can do all things in Christ. And I was like, no, but, you know, rather than get into a brawl about the whole thing, I let it go. But I was shocked that, you know, he was firmly of the opinion that, yes, we can have blood pudding. We can eat blood, drink blood, whatever, because, you know, this is now a new era. Well, no, I mean, I don't know how else to put it any more clearly than what the disciples said in Acts chapter 15, that a new convert, anybody who is a believer, is not supposed to eat blood, period. Okay. And that goes completely along with what God had originally said, like a million times, right? He said that to Noah. He reiterates this again and again, do not eat the blood, right? So because there's something special in the blood. The blood has spiritual properties. We may not fully understand all that is because we can't put it under our microscopes and understand all that it's doing. But what Scripture is basically telling us is that it's producing some kind of a force field, so that the worshiper, having taken the blood of this korban, remember korban means to come near, the blood allows that person. The blood covers, the word kafar, it covers the worshiper so he can do what? Come near to God. Like putting on a spacesuit or a force field if you're into science fiction. Okay, that's what it's like. And that's really important. Speaking of force fields, the Earth has a force field. It's called the magnetosphere. And without it, we would be toast, right? Because all the solar particles would come here and just wipe out all the water, etc. And we'd be living on a barren planet. Well, we wouldn't be living, let's put it that way, because we'd be dead, right? So we need the force field. Otherwise, the solar flares are going to hit us. Same basic idea. God is the sun. He is this fiery energy. And to come near him, you need to have a force field on. As long as your shields are up, you're good. You can be close. But if they're not, you're in trouble. All right. So that is a huge significance of the blood. And we're going to keep looking at that as we go throughout this book. All right. Onward to chapter 2. When anyone offers a grain offering to the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil on it and put frankincense on it. He shall bring it to Aaron's sons, the priests, one of whom shall take from his handful of fine flour and oil with all the frankincense, and the priest shall burn it as a memorial on the altar, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is most holy of the offerings to the Lord made by fire. And if you bring as an offering a grain offering baked in the oven, it shall be unleavened cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, or unleavened wafers anointed with oil. But if your offering is a grain offering baked in a pan, it shall be of fine flour, unleavened, mixed with oil. You shall break it in pieces and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. If your offering is a grain offering baked in a covered pan, it shall be made of fine flour with oil. You shall bring the grain offering that is made of these things to the Lord. When it is presented to the priest, he shall bring it to the altar. Then the priest shall take from the grain offering a memorial portion and burn it on the altar. It is an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. And what is left of the grain offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is most holy of the offerings to the Lord made by fire. No grain offering which you bring to the Lord shall be made with leaven, for you shall burn no leaven nor any honey in any offering to the Lord made by fire. Right? Now, leaven, we, of course, learn this from the Apostle Paul, who obviously learned it from the book of Leviticus, that leaven probably is the book of Exodus as well. But leaven, of course, is a type. It's a symbol of sin. Why? Because leaven, when you put it in the bread, it spreads throughout the entire mixture, and then it begins to expand it, right? And so Paul talks about that, how, the leaven, it leavens the whole lump, right? And that's the basic idea. So when there's no leaven in it, it's not spreading. Sin has a tendency to spread, right? Sin isn't just a one-off, but it keeps on going this way and that way and has all kinds of ramifications. Think of it like cancer. I always want to go from the spiritual, because I know sometimes when it's up there, it's really hard for us to imagine. And what's also important to understand is that the spiritual and the physical really do connect. Okay. A lot of times when the Bible is talking about sin, another word for it could be decomposition, degeneration. I'm going to prove that to you. We're going to go to Romans chapter 8. We're going to look at verse 19. So here Paul is talking about creation. He says, the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. For creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. Because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pangs together until now. So what is he talking about? Well, when he talks about creation, he's talking about the rocks, the trees, the dirt, right? The stuff that's in our natural environment, that stuff, the earth that we live on, it has degeneration. Don't believe me? Well, just keep looking in the mirror for a few more years and you'll see, you'll start degenerating. You start looking at your car, it will start degenerating. Your house will start degenerating, right? Your shoes, your clothes, everything begins to degenerate. Just leave some food out, exception of McDonald's, but leave anything else out. And guess what? It'll start to decompose, right? Because that's this state of sin or decomposition, degeneration that the world is in. And so leaven is really an incredible symbol of that degeneration, because it just keeps spreading, just like cancer. Cancer spreads and ultimately it kills. Okay, he says, and as for the offerings of your first fruits, you shall offer them to the Lord, but they shall not be burned on the altar for a sweet aroma. Now, I just want to point this out here. Here's the word korban. Okay, as for the offering, the word korban, sacrifice. This is something that is used to bring near, right? To bring near to God on behalf of the worshiper. So anyway, and every offering of your grain offering you shall season with salt. You shall not allow the salt of the covenant of your God to be lacking from your grain offering. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. All right. So what's up with a covenant of salt? All right, a covenant of salt. Understand what the purpose of salt. Obviously, it does a number of things, right? It can preserve, but it's also, we use it today for what? Taste, right? Salt is in everything. Imagine your food without any salt. It's really not such a wonderful proposition. Okay, now we don't want to go too much salt, right? That's not good either, but definitely having salt is important. And so God is saying you got to bring salt. Why is he talking about salt? Well, in the ancient world, it was said that when you would maybe sit down and have dinner with somebody or meal, you were exchanging salt. In other words, you're sharing food with each other. And so this sharing of food is called giving of salt, or sharing salt, because there's salt involved in the food that you're eating. So really, a covenant of salt is a friendship, right? It's a friendship covenant. That's, it's not so apparent to us today because we don't talk about covenants of salt, but it's talking about how God wants to have fellowship with his people. He wants to be friends, basically. Okay. So this is essentially a friend covenant. If you offer a grain offering of your first fruits to the Lord, you shall offer for the grain offering of your first fruits green heads of grain roasted on the fire, grain beaten with full heads, and you shall put oil on it and lay frankincense on it. It is a grain offering. Then the priest shall burn the memorial portion, part of its beaten grain and part of its oil, with all the frankincense as an offering made by fire to the Lord. Okay, we're on to Leviticus chapter 3. When his offering is a sacrifice of a peace offering, if he offers it of the herd, whether male or female, he shall offer it without blemish before the Lord. And he shall lay his hand on the head of his offering and kill it at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. And Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle the blood all around on the altar. Then he shall offer from the sacrifice of the peace offering. One second. He shall lay his hand on the head of his offering and kill it at the door of the tabernacle meeting, and Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle the blood all around the altar. Then he shall offer from the sacrifice of the peace offering an offering made by fire to the Lord, the fat that covers the entrails and all the fat that is on the entrails, the two kidneys and the fat that is on them by the flanks, and the fatty lobe attached to the liver above the kidneys he shall remove. And Aaron's son shall burn it on the altar upon the burnt sacrifice, which is on the wood that is on the fire, as an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. If his offering is a sacrifice of a peace offering to the Lord, is of the flock, whether male or female, he shall offer it without blemish. If he offers a lamb as his offering, then he shall offer it before the Lord. Okay, so a peace offering. Look, a burnt offering that was totally consumed. Then we have the atonement. We're going to get to that in a second. Here we have the peace offering. This is basically a friendly offering. This is where it's saying, look, Lord, I love you. I think you're awesome. And I just want to bring this before you because you're that good. Maybe you got a big fat raise at work. Maybe you just got married. Maybe something amazing happened in your life, and you want to tell God how much you appreciate all that he's done. And I'll tell you, having a sacrifice of praise, a peace offering, understanding that all good things come from God. And if you'll just keep the word of thanksgiving, gratitude on your lips, on your heart. I mean, I really encourage you guys to go throughout your day with that attitude. Lord, thank you. It's not that you're groveling all day. It's not that, Lord, I'm so unworthy. Why are you talking to me? That's not it. Look, are we unworthy? Sure, of course we are. right? Is groveling appropriate once in a great while? Sure, I suppose, right? But look, God didn't save us so that we could grovel at his feet the rest of our lives. He wants to have what? A relationship with us. He wants to have friends, okay? And I don't know if you've ever had, that friend who's like way richer than you are. Your friendship's not going to last too long if you're always there saying, I'm unworthy to be your friend. You're upper class, upper class, whatever it may be, and I'm just down here in lower middle to upper lower, or whatever I am, just lower. I don't know. You're just like, you want to say thank you, right? If he buys dinner, hey, thanks, buddy, I appreciate that. Hey, thanks for picking up the hotel for all of us. Really appreciate that. That's really kind of you. So you're grateful, but the sense of I'm unworthy and I can't hang out with you, that's not what God is looking for. God wants to have a relationship. Okay. Now, obviously, my little metaphor breaks down because God is far greater than any rich friend you have. God is the ultimate source of all things, right? And so it's just to be mindful of the things that you have. When you get that raise and you start living a life that's expectant of what God is going to do for you, you're expecting him to do great things, right? What a difference. You're expecting him to do great things. And then when he does, you say, thank you. And so that is partly what this peace offering is all about. God has done amazing things. Look how blessed I am, right? Thank you, Lord. That's all. I just wanted to say thanks. Okay. And so keep that in mind as we're looking at this offering right here. All right. Now, obviously, there's a prescription for how you're supposed to go about it. And that's where it gets a little bit tedious, I understand. But that's what really the priests, right? Now, probably the average person understood a lot of these things, but they were not as well versed as the priests. The priests had to know this stuff. This was their bread and butter. Okay. This was their livelihood, their vocation. And so they really had to become proficient in all these different things. All right. So if his offering as a sacrifice of peace offering to the Lord is of the flock, whether male or female, he shall offer it without blemish. Okay. Why would it have to be without blemish? What's the big deal? Well, look, if you're really coming and you're going to give a gift to your friend and you want to say thanks for all that you've done, right? So let's kind of go back to my little scenario. Your rich friend takes you on vacation and he puts you up in a nice hotel and buys a lot of good dinners. Am I going to go and then kind of give him like an old worn out sock and say, thank you? Well, I hope not, right? I mean, that would be, you might as well just not even say thanks, right? If you're going to say thanks, then bring your best, okay? You don't have to give as much as he gave because you can't, right? But whatever you have, give something of value to give back if you want to say thanks. Like that's the point here. So you can't bring a blemished sheep, right? You're like, well, that one wasn't worth as much anyway, so I might as well give it to the Lord. Well, forget it then. Like just don't do it. God desires a cheerful giver. If you're going to give to the Lord, then do it cheerfully or don't do it. Like he's not going to be like, you didn't give to me today. Like he's not demanding that you give to him. But if you're going to give to him, then do it with a joyful heart. That's really what this whole thing is about. And once we can kind of get inside there and understand what these things are all about, it's not just some boring book of, oh, you got to do this and you got to do that. And that was Old Testament and now we do the New Testament. No, it's the same God, but we're going through the manual as to how these things had to be done. Yes, there was a prescription for it. There was a particular order that it had to be done in, but it was always about the heart. It's always been about the heart. I mean, I just can't tell you. It's always been about the heart. It's never this sense of, well, you got to do this and then turn right and then go left and then go down and then, stand up, sit down 3 times. It was never about that. All right. So yeah, I'll get off my diatribe now. Okay. Let's move on. Moving on. Okay. So if he offers as a lamb as his offering, then he shall offer it before the Lord, and he shall lay his hand on the head of his offering and kill it before the tabernacle of meeting, and Aaron's son shall sprinkle its blood all around the altar. Then he shall offer from the sacrifice of the peace offering as an offering made by fire to the Lord, its fat and the whole fat tail, which he shall remove close to the backbone, and the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them by the flanks, and the fatty lobe attached to the liver above the kidneys he shall remove, and the priest shall burn them on the altar as food, as an offering made by fire to the Lord. And if his offering is a goat, then he shall offer it before the Lord. He shall lay his hand on its head and kill it before the tabernacle meeting, and the sons of Aaron shall sprinkle its blood all around on the altar. Then he shall offer from it his offering as an offering made by fire to the Lord, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, the 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them by the flanks, and the fatty lobe attached to the liver above the kidneys he shall remove. And the priest shall burn them on the altar as food, an offering made by fire for a sweet aroma. All the fat is the Lord's. This shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations, and all your dwellings you shall eat neither fat nor blood. Okay, I'm actually quite happy about that, because I don't really like the fat anyway. I don't know too many people who are terribly excited about, you get a big fat steak, you get a big steak, right? And there's this, there's just the thing of fat going through the middle. And you're like, I don't want that, right? It's not good for me, as far as I know. It doesn't taste good. God's like, I'll take it. So that's kind of cool. And the blood, remember we talked about the blood. So those are not to be eaten, which is really great from a health perspective, but there's also all these other spiritual applications as well that we've already discussed. All right, let's move on to Leviticus chapter 4. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, if a person sins unintentionally against any of the commandments of the Lord and anything which ought not to be done, and does any of them, if the anointed priest sins, bringing guilt on the people, then let him offer to the Lord for his sin, which he has sinned, a young bull without blemish as a sin offering. Okay, so look, if an anointed priest sins and he's bringing guilt on the people, right? Because wait a second, he's going to bear the iniquity of the children of Israel. But then if he has sin in his life, what do you do about that, right? So then you have the whole thing. He's got to bring a young bull without blemish as a sin offering, okay? So again, there are these different kinds of offerings. We looked at the burnt offering, the peace offering. Now we're looking at the sin offering. All right. And notice here, if you blow it, if you sin, there is a means of forgiveness, right? Now, the animal is a necessary part of that, but it was always about the heart, okay? It was always about the heart. All right, so he shall bring the bull to the door of the tabernacle of meeting before the Lord, lay his hand on the bull's head, and kill the bull before the Lord. Then the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood and bring it to the tabernacle of meeting. The priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle some of the blood 7 times before the Lord in front of the veil of the sanctuary. The priest shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of sweet incense before the Lord, which is in the tabernacle of meeting, and he shall pour the remaining blood of the bull at the base of the altar of the burnt offering, which is at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. He shall take from it all the fat of the bull as a sin offering, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat which is on the entrails, the 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them by the flanks, and the fatty lobe attached to the liver above the kidneys, he shall remove, as it was taken from the bull of the sacrifice of the peace offering, and the priest shall burn them on the altar of the burnt offering. But the bull's hide and all its flesh, with its head and its legs and entrails and offal, the whole bull he shall carry outside the camp to a clean place where the ashes are poured out, and burn it on wood with fire. Where the ashes are poured out, it shall be burned. All right, so this, of course, is a picture of Jesus, who became the sin offering, right? He was taken outside the camp to where the ashes are poured out, probably in that same general area, maybe the exact area Jesus was sacrificed. Now, if the whole congregation of Israel sins unintentionally, and the thing is hidden from the eyes of the assembly, and they've done anything against the commandments of the Lord, and anything which should not be done, and are guilty, when the sin which they have committed becomes known, then the assembly shall offer a young bull for the sin and bring it before the tabernacle of meeting. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands on the head of the bull before the Lord. Then the bull shall be killed before the Lord. Notice again, so you obviously have representatives. You can't have 1,000 people putting their hands on a bull, right? So you're going to have representatives that are doing that, or the priests are going to be the representatives who are going to do that on their behalf. But they're all going to be maybe putting their hands toward that because they want to transfer their guilt onto this animal who becomes the sacrifice, who then dies, right? He dies with that sin upon him, right? And that's what Yeshua did, is that he was raised up, and the guilt that we have incurred because we've broken God's commandments, we just do, okay? And so it's transferred to Yeshua, who then died with that guilt. Now, there's a whole bunch that we could talk about regarding why Jesus had to die. I did a whole video on that. I did like maybe twice. I did it. Why did Jesus have to die? Check it out. It's on my YouTube channel. And I go into the various reasons, right? So it's not only for my personal sin. He did that. Yes, he did. But I think it's kind of nearsighted that we talk about that, Jesus died for my sins, and that's all we talk about. I mean, he did. I want to make it clear, he did die for my sins, but there were other things that he was doing on the cross as well. And so those are very important. But for now, we'll just talk about how his death atoned for my personal sin. We'll talk about that for today, okay? And the anointed priest shall bring some of the bull's blood to the tabernacle meeting. Then the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord in front of the veil. And he shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar, which is before the Lord, which is in the tabernacle meeting. And he shall pour the remaining blood at the base of the altar of burnt offering, which is at the door of the tabernacle meeting. He shall take all the fat from it and burn it on the altar. And he shall do with the bull as he did with the bull of the sin offering. Thus he shall do with it. So the priest shall make atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven them. All right. So VaYikra, okay, and it's going to be covered. So the sin that they did is going to be covered. That's the word chiper or kafar, right? Kippurim. That's where we get the Yom Kippur, right? That's where we get that is from that word. I think a much better word than atonement is covering. It's the same word that's used that Noah covered the ark with pitch. That's the same idea. Okay, so this blood is covering the life of the worshiper so that they can do what? Be close to, right? That's that word korban, so they can be close to God, right? So this is how it's happening, okay? Now, the blood of bulls and goats cannot take away the sin. Only Yeshua can do that, right? But that's kind of a really technical kind of thing. Like for the worshiper's point of view, it doesn't drastically matter. So basically, when people died before Yeshua, they did not go straight to heaven. Okay. Even Abraham, Moses, right? King David, all these amazing righteous men, Job, okay, Daniel, they went into the grave and there they waited. Now it seems to be, and I'm just going to say this a little bit speculatively because it's not 100% clear, but I think it's clear enough. In Ephesians chapter 4, it talks about how Jesus led captivity captive, right? And which is a reference taken from Psalm 68, where it's talking about how he was going to defeat Bashan and the bulls of Bashan. I talk about all that in Corrupting Image Volume 2. Very exciting stuff. Okay. Where he beat the king of death, which is Satan. Okay. So he beat death. So the best that I can do when I'm kind of stitching these things together is to understand that if you died before Yeshua, you were basically waiting in the grave. And then when Jesus ascended on high, it's not absolutely clear, but I think he took the souls of those who were waiting for him. He took them up to heaven. And based on Revelation chapter 6, it would seem that those souls are now waiting underneath the altar. But I could be wrong. Okay. So I don't know, you can quote me if you want to, but I don't know. That's my best stitching together. But we'll figure it out later. The point I'm trying to make is that apart from the blood of Jesus, nobody could go to be with the Lord. Even Abraham, Moses, Job, all those great guys. because, yeah, they were forgiven. They were accepted as righteous in God's eyes. But remember, God is fire, right? He's fire. And so if you're going to have a corrupted individual, corrupted in the physical sense, corrupted that our DNA is falling apart, how do you have this person go into God's presence without burning up? You don't. So the only option, the only solution is for Jesus to come, not only to atone for my personal sin, but also to correct the imbalance between heaven and earth, right? To fix the problem that we have is that we are incompatible with God. And so we need to have a new body. That was all purchased by the blood of Yeshua. Okay. So again, there's a lot of things that happened when Jesus died for us, right? When he died, he did a lot of things, not just for me, not just for sinners everywhere, but for the entire earth, to reconcile all things between heaven and earth, right? His death and blood accomplished a lot of things. All right. Excuse me. Then he shall carry the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. It is a sin offering for the assembly. When a ruler has sinned and done something unintentionally against any of the commandments of the Lord his God, and anything which should not be done, and is guilty, or if his sin which he has committed comes to his knowledge, he shall bring as an offering, as his offering, a kid of the goats, a male without blemish, and he shall lay his hands on the head of the goat and kill it at the place where they kill the burnt offering before the Lord as a sin offering. The priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and pour its blood at the base of the altar of burnt offering. And he shall burn all its fat on the altar, like the fat of the sacrifice of the peace offering. So the priest shall make atonement for him concerning his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. If anyone of the common people sins unintentionally by doing anything against any of the commandments of the Lord in anything which ought not to be done, and is guilty, or if his sin which he has committed comes to his knowledge, then he shall bring as his offering a kid of the goats, a female without blemish, for his sin which he has committed. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering and kill the sin offering at the place of the burnt offering. Then the priest shall take some of its blood with his finger, put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and pour all the remaining blood at the base of the altar. He shall remove all its fat, as fat is removed from the sacrifice of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn it on the altar for a sweet aroma to the Lord. So the priest shall make atonement for him, it shall be forgiven him. If he brings a lamb in his sin offering, he shall bring a female without blemish. Then he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering and kill it as a sin offering at the place where they kill the burnt offering. The priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering, and pour all the remaining blood at the base of the altar. He shall remove all its fat, as the fat of the lamb is removed from the sacrifice of peace offering. Then the priest shall burn it on the altar according to the offerings made by fire to the Lord. So the priest shall make atonement for his sin that he has committed, and it shall be forgiven him. All right, so we go on, and he talks about more sins here. If a person sins in hearing the utterance of an oath, and as witness, whether he has seen or known of the matter, if he does not tell it, he bears guilt. Okay, so you're an accomplice to something, you got to fess up. Or if a person touches any unclean thing, whether it is the carcass of an unclean beast, or the carcass of an unclean livestock, or the carcass of unclean creeping things, and he is aware of it, he shall also be unclean and guilty. Or if he touches human uncleanness, whatever uncleanness with which a man may be defiled, and he is unaware of it, when he realizes it, then he shall be guilty. All right, let's stop for a second, because this just seems like, wait a second, why would you be guilty? I think it's really quite simple. And, of all people, we should now understand this, having lived through the age of COVID, right? There's things called contagions, right? And look, it doesn't matter if I'm an amazing person. If I touch something that is contagious, if I touch a needle, if I touch somebody, how should I put this? So if I touch an open source of AIDS, I'm trying to put that right, okay, such as a needle or something. It doesn't matter if I'm the greatest guy that you've ever known. I'll still get AIDS, right? Or I could get COVID, or I could get any number of illnesses because they're contagious, right? So it's nothing about my moral character. This is like, if you've touched something that's unclean, well, guess what? Now you're unclean. I think it makes sense, right? Because if you touch somebody who is really sick and they're contagious, well, nah, you probably have it. Okay. So God is explaining what to do in those scenarios. Okay. Or if a person swears speaking thoughtlessly with his lips to do evil or to do good, whether it is that a man may pronounce by an oath and he is unaware of it, when he realizes it, then he shall be guilty in any of these matters. And it shall be when he is guilty in any of these matters that he shall confess that he has sinned in that thing. And he shall bring his trespass offering to the Lord for his sin, which he has committed, a female from the flock, a lamb or a kid of the goats as a sin offering. So the priest shall make atonement for him concerning his sin. If he's not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring to the Lord for his trespass, which he has committed, 2 turtle doves and 2 young pigeons, one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. And he shall bring them to the priest, who shall offer that for which is for the sin offering first, and wring off its head from its neck, but he shall not divide it completely. And he shall sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the altar, and the rest of the blood shall be drained out at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. And he shall offer the second as a burnt offering according to the prescribed manner. So this priest shall make atonement on his behalf for the sin which he has committed, and it shall be forgiven him. All right, so again, we talked about how the blood has obviously physical properties and it also has spiritual properties. All right, so here's a person who has touched something that's unclean, or they've done something with their mouth and it's made them unclean. Well, the prescription for that is this particular sacrifice. Now, again, it's hard for us to quite understand this because we're very much into our medicine and our technology and microscopes. And if I can't see it, then it must not exist. But we know that that's not completely true, right? Because there are things in the spiritual realm that are real. They do exist and they have an impact on us. It's hard to quantify that because we can't measure it. We can't put it under the microscope. But they're nevertheless very real. Remember, God said, if you will keep my commandments, none of the plagues of Egypt will come upon you. So God's saying, look, if you guys do it according to the way I'm telling you, you're not going to get sick. You're not going to die early. You're going to enjoy a good long life. And well, of course, a lot of them didn't because they weren't doing it the way God said to do it. All right, then he shall bring it to the priest, and the priest shall take his handful of it as a memorial portion and burn it on the altar according to the offerings made by the fire to the Lord as a sin offering. The priest shall make atonement for him for his sin that he has committed in any of these matters, and it shall be forgiven him. The rest shall be the priest's as a grain offering. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, if a person commits a trespass and sins unintentionally in regard to the holy things of the Lord, then he shall bring to the Lord as his trespass offering a ram without blemish from the flocks, with your valuation in shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, as a trespass offering. And he shall make restitution for the harm that he has done in regard to the holy thing, and he shall add 1/5 to it, and give it to the priest. So the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram and the trespass offering, and it shall be forgiven him. If a person sins and commits any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of the Lord, though he does not know it yet, he is guilty and shall bear his iniquity. And he shall bring to the priest a ram without blemish from the flock, with your valuation as a trespass offering. So the priest shall make atonement for him regarding his ignorance in which he erred and did not know it, and it shall be forgiven him. In his trespass offering, he has certainly trespassed against the Lord. So it says where he shall bear it. You're bearing your guilt, right? And you bring this before the Lord to what? To no longer bear this guilt, right? So this is now taken off you. We talk about this, right? When you feel guilty about something, maybe you've done it, maybe you just feel bad, but often if you actually done something, you feel some weight, you're oppressed because something is upon you. And then when you're forgiven and the whole matter is finally resolved, what do you feel? Like a burden's been lifted off your shoulders, right? Because that's what it's talking about, right? So, we could say, oh, well, there's nothing physical about this. Well, it's maybe not, but it's spiritual, right? But this gets into your DNA, gets into your cells, and it can weigh you down. And there's all kinds of scientific research that talks about how when a person has a sense that there's something bad in their life, that actually your cells begin to shut. They literally close their doors so that they can no longer take in good nutrients, and you start to waste away, right? So you need to get these things resolved. So what can be partly in the spiritual realm can then certainly manifest itself in the physical realm. All right, onward to chapter 6. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, if a person sins and commits a trespass against the Lord by lying to his neighbor about what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or if he is extorted from his neighbor, or if he has found what was lost and lies concerning it and swears falsely, in any one of these things that a man may do in which he sins, then it shall be, because he has sinned and is guilty, that he shall restore what he has stolen, or the thing which he has extorted, or the thing which was delivered to him for safekeeping, the loss in which he found, or all that about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore its full value and add 1/5 to it, and give it to whomever it belongs on the day of his trespass offering. All right, so we were first talking about unintentional sins, right? I certainly didn't mean to do that, but I did it. Here's what needs to happen. Now here, what is God talking about? These are sins that I know that I'm doing, right? I know that I'm lying, okay? I know that I'm robbing, etc. So these are very intentional sins. So can intentional sins be forgiven? Yes, they can. However, there needs to be restitution that goes along with that. It's not just, I'm really sorry, please forgive me. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm glad that you did that. So, I'm willing to forgive you, but you need to pay back what you stole, right? 100% of it plus 20%, and we'll call it even. Okay. So you give me 120% of what you took from me, and we're good. Okay. And so this is what God is talking about. So yes, there can be forgiveness for intentional sins, which is really good news. Okay. That's very good news, because, if we're all honest, if we're not lying, then we probably tell, some things that are not true now and then, right? We've, at least once in our life, we've probably taken something that really didn't belong to us. Maybe it was, a little 5-finger discount. Maybe we took something, maybe we took somebody else's praise that they deserved. Maybe we took a friendship. It could be something intangible that we can also take. So there's lots of ways to rob, to extort something from your neighbor, etc. Right? So all of these various kinds of sins that can be manifested in so many different ways. I mean, he's listed only a couple, but if you start thinking about how those could be played out in the real world, you're like, oh my, there must probably like dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of potential ways that you could actually do these different things. God is willing to forgive those as well, but you got to pay back. You got to pay back, and you got to add 20%. Okay. He says, and he shall bring his trespass offering to the Lord, a ram without blemish from the flock, with your valuation as a trespass offering to the priest. So the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord, and he shall be forgiven for any of these things that he may have done in which he trespasses. Well, hallelujah, right? But again, you got to pay back first. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command Aaron and his son, saying, this is the law of the burnt offering. The burnt offering should be on the hearth upon the altar all night until morning, and the fire of the altar should be kept burning on it. And the priest shall put on his linen garment and his linen trousers. He shall put on his body and take up the ashes of the burnt offering, which the fire has consumed on the altar, and he shall put them beside the altar. Then he shall take off his garments and put on the other garments and carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. And the fire of the altar shall be kept burning on it. It shall not be put out. And the priest shall burn wood on it every morning and lay the burnt offering in order on it, and he shall burn on it the fat of the peace offerings. All right, so this is called the tamid offering. Okay, so this is the esh tamid, the fire, the always fire. Okay, so it's always supposed to be going. This is happening outside the camp. A fire shall always be burning on the altar; it shall never go out. This is the law of the grain offering. The sons of Aaron shall offer it on the altar before the Lord. He shall take from it his handful of fine flour of the grain offering with its oil and all the frankincense which is on the grain offering, and shall burn it on the altar for a sweet aroma as a memorial offering to the Lord. And the remainder of it Aaron and his sons shall eat with unleavened bread. It shall be eaten in a holy place. In the court of the tabernacle of meeting they shall eat it. It shall not be baked with leaven. I have given it as their portion of my offerings made by fire. It is most holy, like the sin offering and the trespass offering. All the males among the children of Israel may eat it. It shall be a statute forever in your generations concerning the offerings made by fire to the Lord. Everyone who touches them must be holy. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, this is the offering of Aaron and his sons, which they shall offer to the Lord, beginning on the day when he is anointed 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a daily grain offering, half of it in the morning and half of it at night. It shall be made in a pan with oil. When it is mixed, you shall bring it in. The baked pieces of the grain offering you shall offer as a sweet aroma to the Lord. The priest from among the sons who is anointed in his place shall offer it. It is a statute forever to the Lord. It shall be wholly burned. For every grain offering for the priest shall be wholly burned. It shall not be eaten. Also the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his son, saying, This is the law of the sin offering, and the place where the burnt offering is killed, the sin offering shall be killed before the Lord. It is most holy. When you think about how Jesus became the sin offering, right? He became most holy. He was absolutely set apart for that purpose. There's so many incredible similarities and parallels between them. I just love it. Okay, I'm going to stop a little bit early, and I want to see if you guys have any questions. Looks like we have a couple. Very cool. Okay, so this is from Scott. Scott says, question, what would be the best answer to a pastor or anyone else who states we can do all things through Christ when it comes to blood or any other intentional sin? Well, Scott, I would definitely take them back to Acts chapter 15. I just don't know how to make it any clearer than that. Let's take a look at it. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know what to add. And I kind of went away from that conversation with that gentleman rather incredulously because I'm like, this is specifically written to New Testament believers, okay, to Gentiles. I judge that we should not trouble those from among the Gentiles who are turning to God, but that we write to them to abstain from things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, from things strangled, and from blood. Now, look, I think any pastor would say you're supposed to stay away from sexual immorality. Okay, I mean, right? They wouldn't say, well, that one doesn't count nowadays. Well, of course it does, right? There it is. But look, things polluted by idols. Well, they would agree with that. We should stay away from idols. You stay away from things strangled. Okay, but then from blood, somehow that one doesn't count. I mean, I just don't know what else to say to a person like that. So it's a great question. I don't know if I have the answer because it's pretty weird. Okay, very good. Very cool. Nana of Montana says, I think, every day my husband now recognizes the Sabbath day. I never pushed. I tried to be an example. Praise Yah. Hallelujah. That is good news. And when we let God do things, oh, it's so much sweeter, isn't it? It's really, really good. Okay. I love that. Let's see. This is from Hawkeyes. Other than 1 Thessalonians 4:17, there are no passages in Scripture that indicate that our feet leave this earth. Okay, I'm not quite sure where to go with that, but I'm going to leave it at that. Nana from Montana says, is there significance to offering being female? Nana, that's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer. It seems that there may have been more females than males in the flock. That just seems to be kind of a natural thing. We used to have chickens when I was a kid, and we had certainly more hens than we had roosters. Obviously you need roosters to make more babies, right? So, and if you got a lot of hens and fewer roosters, then guess what? The value of the rooster per capita goes up above the hens because I've got 20 hens and I've got 2 roosters. Well, guess what? The roosters are a lot more valuable. Okay, so probably it has something to do with that there's more value because it's a more sparse resource. Okay, the male, and so you would be more. You're like, that I don't want to give that one up because that's really important. But that's where you have to trust the Lord. Okay, so the female is probably just of lesser value because there's more females in the flock than there are men. Okay, or males. Okay, very cool. Let's see. Very good. Awesome. Man, guys, thank you so much. We got through the entire thing. This is so cool. Thank you for joining me. Always great. I plan to be here next week unless something happens, but I should be here. So hope you guys will join me again. Till next week, God bless you.